On Sports Conversations Malaysia, the man who made the pocket rocket.
I want to do what I can do to be successful in cycling.
John Beasley is a world-class coach with strong views on what needs to change here in Malaysia.
It's about processes and having good processes and being the best you can be every day of your life. And that's how you move forward.
John Beasley on this sports-centered conversation right now. John Beasley is a name that if you've been following cycling in Malaysia over the last nearly 2 decades, you will have come across his name, but as a coach, so you're not really sure what he does. Well, I'm glad to say on Sports Centre Malaysia, John Beasley, who is Malaysia's cycling coach, soon to be technical director, joins us to talk about cycling and becoming a PR, John. Firstly, you've made Malaysia your real home now after 18 years here.
Yeah, and I'm proud to say that I am half Malaysian now, Dez. So yeah, I really feel accepted, which is a beautiful thing that Malaysia's sort of bestowed. So yeah, so really happy, mate.
Excellent. You're born and bred in Australia, which is on the map behind me, but you've been here a good 18 years. I want to talk, though, about the Olympics, where you've just come back from in Paris. And, oh, the emotions, John, the emotions. Azizulhasni, we'll talk Azizul first, because a genuine medal contender, possibly a gold medal contender. What went wrong?
Yeah, I really don't know. I woke up that day, maybe I was too confident. I don't know. Like, we come into the event, he was in the form of his life. We everything went perfect on the training camp on the way in. He was we had no sickness, no injuries, going faster than he ever has, and yeah, just made a technical blunder on that first race. And it was a whole lot of our strategy was to get to the front, so to make the move that he was making, but he just did it a little bit early. And I think it all went pear-shaped when the French rider stepped up the track into him, and then he lost a bit of where he was at the time on the track. And yeah, so it forced him up a little bit higher. So the banking, added a little bit of speed, and the Derny rider, the guy on the motorbike, wasn't going at the required speed. So it was just a whole comedy of errors, but the rule states that you're not allowed to pass the bike. So, the rest is history.
It's one of the hardships. I mean, the Olympics can bring glory. Obviously, you've had medals, you've had world championships, there's been glory. But all that work to go up in smoke, and it's a disqualification, so there's not even a repechage, which I think cycling is great and it offers second chances to those who haven't really maybe performed on the first occasion. But there's not even a repechage. That must have been gut-wrenching. How did Azizul take it?
Yeah, look, he was in a state of shock. I knew straight away what the ramifications were. And I was just... it was just the emptiest feeling that you could ever imagine. Like training a guy for 17 years, this was going to be his last race ever for the nation, and his last Olympic, sort of race. And yeah, to end it that way, like I know how I felt, but that's not a patch on, how he must have felt and how he's dealing with the situation now. So, it's going to take a long time for him to get over it. And the first thing, he was in a state of shock, that night. So, when I went back, he still hadn't processed it really. That night, he didn't sleep all that night, which I knew he wouldn't. And then, the next day, we're able to talk a little bit more about it, and, he processed a little bit of what the day before, dealt. But, he's a wonderful human being. He sort of, as much as he hurt, he took it all in his stride, and you can't take it back. You got to move forward. And he's a master at finding ways to keep moving forward.
I did wonder, he apologized to the population, of effectively saying, sorry, Malaysia, that I've let you down. But when he said that, I was thinking, it's not Malaysia who you need to be apologizing to. It's just such a bad piece of luck. You don't owe any apologies to anybody with the career that you've had.
Yeah, I think we all felt we let the country down. Like, just the expectations. I mean, yeah, he put his hand up and said that, like, I want to win that gold medal. And we go to every major competition, Des, not to make the numbers up. It's to compete and compete well. And, so it was nothing different to us. The pressure, people say it was pressure. It wasn't pressure. We've dealt with pressure now for years, so it was just a crazy thing that happens, to some people, once in a long career, and it just happened to be him on the biggest stage, which is not nice for anyone. But yeah, so we'll see. Like I don't know if he's going to end his career on that note. He's still got a lot to give, but he's sacrificed a lot of family time. So to me, he's had a fantastic career. If he calls it now, that's great. We just move on with the next phase, and we're sitting down together in 2 weeks' time to discuss, okay, what does that next phase look like, and then how do we plan, to sort of ease you into that next phase. So, but his plan immediately is he wants to have fun racing his bike. So he wants to race professional Keirin, probably in Japan for 1 or 2 stints, finish his university degree. So he's got 6 subjects left in his sports science degree, and he sort of did 12 months of commerce before that, and he's done the highest sports science stream. So he's done the physio stream. So he's extremely intelligent, and people say, like, it'd be great if he got into coaching. I don't want him to get into coaching. I don't want people to judge him on other people's performances. And I think he's got so much more to offer Malaysia on the broader sports spectrum, making change than being a cycling coach.
Okay, hey, that's one of the things that I think has marked him and you out in many ways, in that Malaysian in a sporting world, very shy, very reticent to put themselves up as contenders. And yet it's been a feature of the two of you, Azizul and yourself, saying, listen, we are going to win. That must have, I mean, that's a cultural shift as far as I'm concerned in the sporting world for Malaysia. Is that something you consciously with Azizul worked on?
No, I think when I brought him to Melbourne, look, he's a unique individual. I think his story is beautiful. It could be a great movie one day, Des. Like, I think he was adopted out from a large family. He's flat-footed, he's colorblind, and he's short in stature, but he's found a way in life to succeed. And I brought him to Australia, and I think that made a big difference when we got him out of his the comfort zone, got him into Australia. He didn't speak a lot of English, so he had to quickly learn English, and then we sat down and we looked at the Malaysian diet, and I said, mate, you're not going to go anywhere, eating that Malaysian diet. So you're willing to make the sacrifice and change? And he goes, yes, like I want to do what I can do to be successful in cycling. So, he changed his Malay taste, that, which is really hard to do when you're brought up on Malaysian food and you love the taste of it, and then to adopt a grilled, sort of protein with vegetable sort of diet. But he made that sacrifice, and when he made that sacrifice, we were able to start to put muscle mass on him. And at the same time, we immersed him in a sporting culture, which, as you made mention before, Malaysia just doesn't have that sporting culture. And I look at the Malaysian football team, for example, and you look in the 70s, they were ranked above Australia, and then like I know the talent that the Malaysian pool have, but obviously there's a massive cultural sort of problem within the football community. So, but we're not talking football. I think that's your expertise. I think we're getting back to cycling. We just immersed him in a cycling culture. We raced him probably 5 times a week, 5 or 6 times a week. So he learned the craft of racing very quickly. And because he had no money, like every race was like a world championship final. So, like he won every race because there was $20 up for grabs for each race. And that meant, sort of a lot to him, putting more, fruit and veggies on the table. So, So he was a ferocious competitor to, right from the start.
Wow, that's that. As you say, that's a great story, and it's largely been hidden from the rest of us. The sacrifices people make, but without wanting to jeopardize your newly won PR status, you made some really valuable comments about the whole sporting culture, having to change the diet, the sporting culture. When things are going well, people watch Malaysian sport like nothing else. But when things aren't going well, it's not quite the same. How do you go about trying to help change that? Because if Malaysia was to make it to the World Cup finals, for example, in football, gosh, this country would just stop. If Azizul were to win gold, he would still be doing tours around Kuala Lumpur and all of the states as well. So and we all know the talent is there. How do we bring it out without losing any of the Malaysian culture that we've both grown up in the last 15 years?
Yeah, it's a good question, Des, but I see Malaysia as a nation coached, not coached. They're driven by sports trainers, and what I mean, we have to make that transition from being a sports trainer. And what I mean by trainer versus coach is a trainer turns up on the day and tells the athletes what to do. He trains the athletes the way that he was coached, and the coach before that coach trained. And we have to get smarter than that. So we've adopted a very smart approach. Every Olympic cycle, sport changes so dramatically, so quickly. You've got to keep up with trends and changes. And if you're not smart, you soon become obsolete. So, I think we need to train up, a nation of really good, high quality sports coaches. And so that's going to take education. They need to have a basic level of sports science. They feel intimidated at the moment. Most of the coaches that I see when they work with the sports science people. So, whether it be a physiologist, a biomechanist or whatever, because they don't speak the same language. So that's the big issue. So they've got to stop appointing ex-athletes and giving them a coaching role. And maybe for a little while, we balance it out and get some sports science graduates and teach them to be a coach, and then put an ex-racer next to that person for the tactical prowess of the sport. But I went back to uni I left school to be an athlete in year 10, so fourth form. I never thought I would go to university. I put myself through a science and coaching course at Victoria University when I was 48 years old. So, if I can pass it, anyone can pass it. And I did it to lead the young generation of coaches here, and said that, I'm probably the last generation of coaches that didn't need a piece of paper to get a job. So
in all sports, yes.
Yeah. So I think moving forward, we just got to adopt a smarter approach, and we have to get more educated, and that's the difference. So I think if we've got more educated coaches, you plan an Olympic cycle from the day of competition back 4 years, and then you need to make sure that you've got everything you need in that program over the 4 years to reach the ultimate goal. And it's the programming that a lot of them get lost in. They just can't think beyond next week or the next training session. So we map out our training cycle. I've already got an outline of what LA is going to look like, and then we start to put in all the pieces around it. And then in cycling, we can measure everything there. So we're so lucky because we can measure power output, we can measure cadence, we can measure speed. We can measure every determinant. So we know how the athlete is progressing and traveling. We can measure their torque. There's a whole lot of things that we can do that probably some other sports can't do. So we're lucky. We're an F1 sport. And if we look at coaching, I look at coaching in two different aspects. I look at every watt that I can build power-wise for each athlete, and then I look at every percent of drag that I can knock off that athlete. So I look at it from two ways, and that's how we can make them go fast.
I heard a story once, and I'm not sure how it's true, so I'm going to ask. But how you identify cyclists in the first case isn't by their cycling ability; it's by their thigh or their jumping ability. You did some testing, physical testing, before you decided who your cyclists were. Is that true? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, that's one of the tests we do, Des. So, our explosive athletes are prolific jumpers. If you look at Azizul and Shah, Shah can't jump his height, but he can jump very, very high, where Azizul can jump his height.
Wow.
So he's a powerful athlete,
Wow.
and so they're just like you can line them up on the basketball court, and the first one across, they're a power athlete. So it's not rocket science. It's just a way of identifying, some basic qualities, and then from there you got to teach them how to ride a bike. But I think that's a whole nother area is the sports school system. And you've opened up a can of worms that like we've just gone through SUKMA that. It drives me insane, SUKMA, and I've written a document, and we'll see if we can make change. But in our sport, SUKMA is an under 21 event.
Yeah.
All states in Malaysia, their funding is derived around getting their KPIs is to get a result at SUKMA. So to be a good cyclist, they normally come into their peak around 25 to 35. And the states, if they're too old for SUKMA, they chuck them out. So, we invest in them up to the age of 19 or 20, and then the states get rid of them. So it's for me, if you're going to have a multi-sport Malaysian Games, it should be like the China Games, and it's the best of the best compete. So that way the states will keep funding their athletes and we're not caught on the hamster wheel, sort of, developing kids up to an age of 19 and 20 and then scrapping them before they even reach their peak.
Again, that's so similar in many sports. Where do these athletes go once they've reached post teens? And an interesting one, a kind of a byproduct. So I often go down to Johor, and there's a new velodrome down there, which is largely thanks to you. And I've been past Nilai. I don't know how to approach going into these places to cycle. They're expensive pieces of equipment, but I don't know how to use them. How do you get kids in? And once you do go in, I think one of the other things that worries me is the cost of cycling. So there's an impediment to actually getting into the sport in the first place, which I find intimidating. I love the glory, but you need bodies to get into the sport. Again, am I being wrong? Am I being naive?
No, you're exactly right. And it's been one of our biggest challenges, and it still is, how we grow track cycling around Malaysia, because we really only have a couple of venues. As you said, we've got one in Nilai, we've got one in Johor Bahru, we've got an outdoor one that is an absolute disaster.
Ipoh, the one in Ipoh. I shake my head every time I go past it.
The Ipoh at Dungun, right? So Dungun just built one in Azizul's hometown, and they named it after him. But what they did, they got the engineers from there. They come and scanned the velodrome at Shiraz, which is was built for the Commonwealth Games in '98, and it's 333 meters. So in their wisdom, what they did was they just chopped the straights out and shoved these two bends together. So it's a disaster. The transitions are you just can't. You couldn't have serious races on that track, but that's Malaysia, right? So Malaysia Bole, everyone knows, and it's a disaster. And I think for us, we can't really grow anymore as a sport until we get some basic facilities around each state in Malaysia. And I've been fighting hard to get those rolled out. We've got no clubs. We're a sport that's got absolutely no
people
clubs.
Need to cycle. People need to race. Yeah. You said about Azizul 5 times a week. You've got to race.
You do. And that's the issue. Our federation don't want clubs, because if you start clubs up, they get a voting right. So, and then they lose control of manipulating who's on the board. So there's a whole lot of stuff, that is wrong with the system. And I don't know how you change that. Culturally, you've got people from politicians to big business people that head up sporting organizations that are sitting at the head of the table that can't bring anything to the sport, are actually there leeching from it. So that's a big problem with the sporting culture in Malaysia. And you just got people running sport that don't understand sport, let alone high performance sport. So that's your big issue.
Gosh, one of the things that is positive is role models. You're about to lose Azizul as an Olympian role model, but third house, let's get back to the performances. I'm not taking away anything that you've just said there, because I agree with a lot of it. Third house, huh? What a story. Gosh, talk about emotion. Coming off the circuit, getting up in his semi-final, and then in the final coming so close, and then whatever happened. Is third house another Azizul, or has he already reached his peak?
He hasn't reached his peak yet, Des. He's very different type of athlete to Azizul. There's only one Azizul in the world, right? So we can't replace him. Once he's gone, he's gone. But we have got other good cyclists. So, and Shah Firdaus is one, and he's been chipping away for a long time, and he really broke. This was his big breakout competition. So look, he's got untapped ability. Physically, he's been phenomenally good, and he's been he's got all the physical attributes to win a gold medal. It's just taken him a little bit of time to mentally mature and handle the pressure of the big occasion. And I'm so proud of him. This was his breakout competition, and we needed him to stand up, and he stood up. So it was a phenomenal performance, and I think good on him. And he just showed a lot of Malaysians what he's capable of doing.
Is he another who had to go out of the country to learn his craft? Was he in Melbourne with you a lot of the time?
Yeah, he was. I picked him up as a 19-year-old and took him straight to Melbourne, and he was under Azizul's mentorship. And the biggest thing that I'm going to miss with Azizul before I finish answering the question is we lose a leader, Des. So he's been a leader to those young ones coming through, and I don't see anyone else having the leadership qualities to lead the group. So that's going to be another challenge. But there is a lot of talent in the group. So, but Shah's got a younger brother who is probably the next closest to stepping up and breaking out. So, and if you looked at them on a bike, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. They're the same size, same shape, same look. So it's like mum and dad stamped them out. And he's probably our closest to stepping up and filling the void along with Shah. And then we got Fadil, who is the backbone of our team sprint. So the team sprint, we didn't qualify for the Olympics, but that's where you've got three athletes. You start in the starting gate and you do one lap each. And Fadil is just bulletproof. He stands up for me every competition. And he does, normally, if not the fastest last lap out of all the countries in the world, he's in the top three. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
So we have got some quality.
Yeah.
If we just sit back and get the processes right, if you've got good processes, the outcome will take care of itself. And that's the thing. Malaysians are outcome focused. They're not process focused. And that's what we've had to educate all of the cycling team is, it's about processes and having good processes and being the best you can be every day of your life. And that's how you move forward.
Yeah. Even your Minister for Sports, they're on a life cycle, aren't they? So they're looking for instant reaction, instant response. Listen, we've spoken about Malaysian cycling. We haven't spoken about John Beasley. How did you get into this? You are a very accomplished cyclist in your own right.
Yeah, it's another lifetime ago. I don't mention my cycling career to my athletes because, it was way before they were born. But, I guess I got into it because my whole family was cyclists there. So my grandfather was a world record holder. My father was Australian champion. My cousins were all Australian champions. And, my dad rode a couple of Tour de France's in the 50s. So, So yeah, so it was just a topic of conversation. It was, I grew up playing football and cricket. My dad wouldn't let me race a bike until I was 15. And, once he let me race my bike, it was a state schoolboy championship, and it was my very first race, and I happened to win it. So, the rest is history. I just loved racing my bike. I love the sport, and the sport's been so kind to me. Like, to be able to live your passion every day of your life, like, not many people get to do that. So I pinch myself some days, Des, that like, I'm working with young athletes that I feel like I'm still 40 years old. I'm 62. So I only feel 62 when I go to do some things. But these kids make you feel young. You're around young people all the time. So and you think about it. I've been coaching 20-year-olds. At Olympics. That's a lot of generation gap. Sort of between. I think they say there's a generation gap every 5 years. Well, I mean, that's monumental. So, and the kids of today, they're never off their phone. So it's quite different to you and I. How we like to have a conversation. They're just, like, their whole life revolves around the phone. So it's very different. But they're great kids, and I think I have to adapt to their lifestyle and what they do, and it's something that my philosophy is that I have to earn their respect before we can start any of the magic happening. So it's up to me to break down those barriers, and it takes time. And once you do, and they let you in, that's when the magic starts to happen. So yeah, so don't worry about my career, mate. That's a lifetime ago. But yeah, I come from a sporting family. All of them were cyclists, and all very successful.
Well, congratulations on your work. It would have been so great for Azil to end his career with a medal. A gold would be perfect. But life goes on, and you become technical director. I wish you good luck in the educational process. Many people who I know in the sporting world say exactly the things that you've said. It's the process that needs looking at, because the talent is absolutely there. And hopefully in your technical director role, you can bring us the next Azizul, or the next Shah, or the next Aisha.
Yeah. Keep an eye on Isa Azati. The young 20-year-old. She's what's she weigh now? I think she's 52 kilograms. She's exactly 5 foot tall. So she's the female version of Azizul. And she rode 10.70 at the Olympics. Now, that's not going to mean much to you guys, but our old record was set at high altitude in Mexico by Fadia Mustafa, and it was 10.999, I think it was. So this young kid at 20 years old, that's still got a young girl's body, is so lightly raced. She doesn't have the same upbringing as what the boys have, where I took them out of the country. I raced them as much as I could. So this girl has probably raced not even 20 times in her life so far. To ride 10.70, like, she can get on the podium in LA without a doubt, and she's going to be such a good long-term prospect for Malaysian cycling for a long time, and a great female role model. So she's a great young girl, and she's managing her sporting career with sports management at Malaysian University. So so it's funny because our girls are well balanced. Like, they can multi-skill. All the girls in our program all go to uni. I've got one boy outside of Azizul that can do that, and is currently at uni studying and sort of still managing to have that high performance sporting pathway. So the boys aren't really good at multi-skilling, multitasking.
Well, on that, boys aren't as good as girls note, but a very positive note. John Beasley, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned a lot. Congratulations on your 18 years so far, and I hope we haven't dented your PR status too much with this interview.
No, I think most people know this crazy white man speaks his mind, and I think to make change, people have to stand up and be counted. And yeah, look, I'm happy to say it how it is, and if people don't like it, well, it's bad luck. It's how I see the sporting landscape, and I think there's got to be change made. And And Hannah Yo is doing a fantastic job. I think she's doing a phenomenal job trying to change the structure. So yeah, all good, Des. Thanks, mate.
Thank you very much, John.